You're listening to Tech Society FM, a podcast about all facets of technology and our society. We deliver in-depth analysis from a technological perspective, giving you our take on things and interviewing people that are doing important things. Now, here's your hosts, Alex Dunmo and John Newitt.
And before we begin this episode, just quickly, is it time for your business to evolve? Yes, it is. So come see Ninja Software, njs.dev. All right, let's get into the episode.
Hey techies, we've got another great episode of Tech Society for you today. A topic after my own heart, we have a guest with us to cover the fast-growing world of cryptocurrencies, Sophie Amat, director and co-founder of OrganiChain. Sophie is a big believer in the social impact of cryptocurrencies and has been in the space since 2014. She has a background in banking and finance and believes strongly in the self-sovereign ability for people to manage their own wealth. In this episode, we'll cover Sophie's personal journey into the wild world of cryptocurrency and what triggered the changes in her worldview, Sophie's mission in educating newcomers to the crypto space, central bank digital currencies and their implications on the cryptocurrency ecosystem, NFTs, their value and what they actually represent. Let's get into it.
Okay, great. Well, I'm Sophie Amat, and I've been in the crypto space, very interested and passionate about it since 2014. I was in a macroeconomics group over in Bali, and I heard all about it. And it was almost like this Hubert co-working space religion. Everybody just got so deeply into it because the most fascinating conversations about financial services were coming out of it. Yeah. And I really wanted to be a part of it. I really didn't understand much of it. Anyway, I became an investor. I became a fundamental analyst in this space. Wow. And having 20 years in banking and finance, I also became this free coach tutor to more than 100 women in my women's group. So we were having these online Zoom conferences to talk about crypto and how it could be beneficial to women, so empowering themselves financially.
Started up way back then.
That started up way back in
2014, right?
That's impressive.
2014, 2015, that's when the macroeconomics group was around.
So that's like before crypto was cool. It was like still pretty early.
Where people were kind of writing it off as a flash in the pan
or a Ponzi scheme.
That's right. And we saw a few of those.
Oh yeah,
they came through Bali too. So we're all implicated in some way. But the very interesting thing was that we had the privilege there to meet people who have since become whales, and I won't drop any names, but also people who were developers in the space. And I think that was very important. So we got the deeper philosophical, political, socio-economic take on cryptocurrencies, which I don't think a lot of people have had the opportunity to be a part of. So I had this conviction that we were going in the right direction. However, what kind of evaded me and my intellect was the actual technology, how decentralization worked and all of that. So when Andreas Antonopoulos came to Bali...
Oh, you met him?
Yes,
He's the author of the book. What's the
Mastering
book?
Bitcoin.
Bitcoin. And he does a lot of talks, and he's an evangelist for longer than I've known about crypto.
He's the
OG, basically.
For lay people, right? Like,
correct. He's actually been, I think, a consultant to government and all sorts of other, policy holders and makers around the world. So he's got a huge reputation. And apart from that, he's not somebody who is willing to use his reputation against any particular project. So he's there for the technology. He's there as an educationalist.
So he's not a Bitcoin maxi then?
Maybe he is.
I
think the purity of it is that, he really has a standard for the criteria of what composes a decentralized cryptocurrency that has durability. And so he uses as the standard for that anyone can measure their own project or anyone else's for that matter. The crypto technology and concept stack. So I think that's really helpful to have someone who's agnostic in that way.
So is that how you were introduced to the more technology side of cryptocurrency, blockchain, etc.?
Yes, the entire understanding of it. In fact, you know, one thing from what he was saying and others were saying in the space, and I really didn't have a lot of interest at the time. I was not in a well frame of mind, but able to process clearly what this was about, was the articles. It's one of the covenants, I think. I can't remember the exact terminology of it, but it's one that more than 71 nations, Australia, New Zealand, France, and other countries, you know, opting into it, which was ratified, which says that every human being has the right to their own self-determination from an economic, socio-political perspective. So, you know, that's something that as human beings we should take quite seriously. And therefore, when you look at, you know, the technologies behind cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin specifically, then to me it makes sense that this is something made by the people for the people. Well, depending upon who you think Satoshi Nakamoto is.
Interesting. So, all right.
So that really hooked me into this sector at a deep philosophical level.
So 2014 was the inflection point for you. But just before that, what was your background that enabled you to appreciate what crypto brought to the people?
Well, I guess that would have to come from having many years and a very successful career in banking and finance. And I found myself literally burnt out in 2013. So,
right, okay.
Yeah, literally burnt out. Burnt out from that career space and also various other things that were happening in my life. So it was a time of reflection. And I was able to understand some of the aspects of the white paper, at least. I made an effort to read it. I'm someone who loves reading.
You actually read it?
I read it.
Yes. You're in a really small group of people.
I know. You're the first person I've met that has admitted that.
Oh, and I love it. I read all white papers.
Did you read it, John?
I have read it, back then as well. It was some technical parts, little diagrams and little algorithms and descriptions and stuff. But the very front page just explains, peer-to-peer currency.
Yes. I think that's what I enjoyed about it. In the abstract, first line, it was right there. It touched me. It was like, and then the second, third line talked about the non-necessity to trust in a central organisation. So I thought, that is so exciting. Having worked for a very centralist banking system, which I understood completely, I thought, this merits, my attention. This merits me really understanding how this can be super helpful for, levelling and democratising the field of banking and financial services and even payments, something as simple as just sending money.
That's so different from a typical person who's worked in the banking industry for, a long time. They fear the change, whereas you managed to accept that something needs to be done and then change your worldview when you discovered Bitcoin as well.
Well, can I jump on that? And also ask, in your, let's say, from a ideological perspective, or what you would love to see the future be, do you see decentralized finance, decentralized currencies replacing the banking system, or do you think it's just another system alongside the banks, and one that the banks will actually integrate into their own systems anyway?
So will they crush it, or will they work with it?
Well, I think they're already working with it, right? I think we've gone past that point.
I really feel like no extreme option is ultimately beneficial for humanity.
That's true.
That's interesting.
So I really feel that there is a way, and yet I know that some of the greatest thinkers talk about what's called dialectic materialism, that one must have an extreme agenda, and out of that comes moderate change. I used to think that way. I was a very strong activist back in the 80s. So.
Great. Excellent.
However, I think it is about moderate change. I think it is about actually establishing a self-sustaining ecosystem which comprises many cryptocurrency markets and categories of assets within it. And us as an industry and those actors and players within that industry doing everything they possibly can to encourage adoption. So that's one of my great passions, because I could see a lot of people struggling with even to understand, as I did, what cryptocurrencies were about, and specifically Bitcoin. We were all thinking about Bitcoin, but then when our minds were open to the vast array of projects and the ICO hype, hype back in 2017, many teams came through Bali. Many teams came through Bali to talk about their projects, and I invested in pretty much all of them.
Oh, no.
Yeah, well, I did,
Did you come out ahead?
Let's just say I cut my losses, and I wish I hadn't, because if I'd kept in,
one of them would have actually.
One of them
did succeed.
Come well ahead, and I'm talking about maybe Bancor. Everyone knows about that one, so I perhaps would have.
You were part of the Bancor originally.
Yes, I was. I was on their and their moderator group and everything. Look, I just hooked myself in because I had time, space, and healing.
Yeah, just so people
To
know,
just
Bancor was
be
pretty
involved.
much the original automated market maker, I believe.
Yeah.
They pioneered the entire, what Uniswap and SushiSwap does today.
Yeah.
Bancor did it first, pretty much.
Yeah.
But the centralized version of what?
Oh no, it was
Uniswap
DeFi.
or-
It was
DeFi.
Was it DeFi?
Yeah, it was the real deal.
On Bitcoin?
Ethereum. I
On
believe.
Ethereum. Okay,
That's
yeah.
correct, but it was a token raise at the time I knew it. So
Yeah.
that was a whole vision that was looking to be kind of like worked through, but you know, they were very kind of helpful in funding a lot of projects. I would have liked them to fund one of my projects, but it never quite got off the ground. It was a peace coin, so maybe I'll come back to
peace
that
coin,
cool.
some later
Yeah.
time. Yeah.
All right, so that's actually really interesting. I'll jump into that because we're slowly moving forward in the future. So I think we've made it
Correct.
2017 now, which is kind of the ICO.
Hang on, before we skip further into the future, you mentioned a women's group.
Yes.
Not many women in cryptocurrency, right? In general, I would say.
In Australia, I just had a look at the stats before coming here. There's something like 14% in Australia. Now, I don't know where those stats come from. I think they're estimates more than accurate, but
Yeah.
there's like 89%, and the demographic is, you know, most of those men are less than 34, millennials, you know, under 40, say. So it is an interesting dilemma we have, and this is one of the passions I have, is to actually help women and to be very upfront as an educationalist, as a consultant, and also as a coach.
Yeah.
And in fact, I just ran not long ago for about 20 women a cryptocurrency course online. And I still
Cool.
have women, even from that Eventbrite marketing that I sent out, they're contacting me and say, I want to take advantage of the course, even though it's over. So I make allowances for that.
Why are they wanting to get involved in cryptocurrency? Is it from a trading perspective, or is it they're
Building startups.
interested in the tech, or like are their goals and motivations different from the kind of people the men you meet in the cryptocurrency community?
I think it's definitely wealth creation at its basis.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to,
Get rich.
particularly women, you know, have control over that.
Absolutely, yeah.
And to be able to identify what are those alternative sources that perhaps they're just not, they don't know.
Yeah.
So it's a way to kind of bridge the ignorance of not knowing.
Okay.
And also to see how to incorporate this into, you know, their investment strategy, you know. And for the most part, I'll be very honest, a lot of them dollar cost average, and, you know, they're not probably looking to be traders.
Yeah.
And, you know, that has some risks with it as well, because one has to know, you know, when you want to take profit. So we talk about a whole range of different things and keep it super simple so that at least they can make a start.
For the lay people who are not even familiar with standard investing, which from a lot of people, what's dollar cost averaging?
Well, dollar cost averaging is a choice that you make as an investor to say over a period of time, I'm going to invest a consistent amount. It
No
could
matter
be-
what the price is.
No matter what the price
Yeah.
of the market is. And you might be looking across, and this is where fundamental analysis comes in, which is one of my passions. And you can see as a banker, you know, they're using a different version of it. But everyone, I think, as businesses, do some sort of value assessment of anything that they purchase, whether it be a car, a house, you know, and I've had a property business I ran very successfully as well. So you're making these judgments. So it's about helping people to understand,
Yeah.
you know, what would be the key metrics or the key points of consideration that I need to be aware of when I purchase into this token or this crypto.
I love that. And I saw you talk at the Crypto Summit. In fact, I think you were right
Thanks.
before John's talk.
That's right.
Yes, it was.
And
a great day.
yeah, it was awesome.
And I was super impressed because I think you're the first person, and I'm even including John on this, who
Man.
a little bit. I'm just teasing.
That's all right.
Who actually talked about the value these projects bringing.
Yes.
Actually looking at the value they're adding to the world, society,
Correct.
the
Yes.
cryptocurrency community, whatever. Like,
Yes.
not just meme stock, Dogecoin, blah, blah.
That's right.
But what actual value are they making and delivering, and why would you invest in them? More than,
Exactly.
so less speculative investing and more investing in things that you either believe in or see value in, right?
Right. Well, I created for myself as a result of this a value stack. We talk of the
Cool.
technology stack, and then we look at the value stack. And
Yeah.
I think that there is an underlying fundamental value proposition that any project has. And I think trying to understand that for the average person is a lot easier than the speculative value component, which, you know, is a skill. It's an expertise. And I welcome having, and I think that's very important for adoption, having, you know, a lot of speculative traders in the market too, because that also has an attraction effect.
What your customers or your the people that you educate, do they come from all walks of life, all age groups, and do you still find it harder to explain to the older crowd, or do the young people just get it straight away? What's it like to teach them the stuff in crypto?
I think generally because of the resources that I use, which are not all mine, and I acknowledge all of the resources. Like there's this very amazing, what is it called? The Origins of Bitcoin, or Bitcoin version 2. It's had something like 16 million hits. So, I mean, it's a very simple way for people to understand it. So I don't have to go into the depth of understanding. I let other experts who've got resource information out there do that part for me.
Yeah.
What I do is I really help them understand the nature of these markets and how they can basically get started, how they can understand risk. So what banks do very well, and this is something that I acknowledge from my training, is they teach you how to manage risk. And that is what I try to impart. I say, look, we live in a life which is full of risk. However, when it comes to financial risk, we all tend to get a little bit kind of bleary-eyed and, dumbstruck, thinking, wow, I can't deal with this. Well, actually, we can. We deal with risks every day. And this is no bigger or greater or worse than anything else. So I make it very matter-of-fact, and people generally get it. And they're interested, so they self-select. I don't get people coming to me.
Of course,
who aren't interested.
They're already on board. They
just want to know more.
Demystification.
That's right.
Yeah.
They want a little bit of like a kickstart, a help along, and then they're off.
Does anyone ever ask you about the more exotic parts of the cryptocurrency landscape?
Is it always, do they start with Bitcoin and then slowly go into Ethereum?
I give an overview because I like to give a contextual overview. So now I am giving an overview of the entire market, like the market cap of NFTs, of the DeFi market, which is a subsector of the crypto market, and you can get all that information off free data aggregator sites, which I think is extraordinary. And so I say to people, look, this information is out there, and I understand it's not everybody's thing to be spending spare time having a look at charts or going to find the information that's very helpful. I mean, I found another stats site this morning just before coming here, for example, and I was delighted about that because I thought, well, there's another place that I can look at adoption rates and make out for myself.
So we've spoken about
this is coming together.
We've spoken about DeFi a few times, Bitcoin, which is kind of before DeFi. You've touched on NFTs a couple of times now, and it actually sits separate from DeFi.
What is an NFT?
Yeah, so what is an NFT, Sophie?
Well, these
Tell
are
me.
non-fungible tokens. They're really fascinating, and their major use case at the moment is for what's called crypto art.
Yeah.
So a lot of people are looking at them as an expression of who they are, and you have creator studios who are creating this crypto art, which is digital, which is unique in nature, which has a degree of complexity, which can also be determine its price. So it's just incredible.
What a crazy world. I mean,
there was a crypto punk that I had at the up on the board at the Crypto Summit, and it sold about 5 months ago for 7.6 million. I think it was CryptoPunk 7804. And it was quite cheerful and very, very fun to look at, but I didn't quite get
your point was,
the value of it.
Where's the value?
Yeah.
And where is the value? Why did someone spend $7.7 million on it?
Everyone just dismisses it often with money laundering, but I think there's more to it than that.
I think there's a lot more to it than that. I think that these are big examples of how people are choosing to use digital processes to create and to generate wealth. I don't think everybody's holding out for perhaps having debt to buy homes. There seems to be a change. I mean, ask millennials, what do they desire the most? I don't know if they're going to say, like my generation, I want to buy a house or have a property business or make passive income that way. There's a high debt load that comes with all of that.
I think they probably do want a home, but they just want to buy it at the same equity level that their grandparents did. Right?
Without the high leverage, of
which
debt to
doesn't not a thing anymore.
equity.
Not if you want to live in a well-populated city.
So do you reckon that young people jumping into crypto are doing so because real estate is just too hard to get into these days?
I think there is a consideration on their part. It's like, what are the average house prices here in this beautiful city of Perth? It's the suburb I live in, and I don't own my own home. I'm part of a beautiful meditation community, but the house prices I think are 7 digits and more. So if you're a millennial looking for a property, where do you go?
So you're part of a meditation community?
Yes.
Can you tell us more?
Yeah, I'm
that came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Okay, right. I don't think I put that in the bio, did I?
No, this is brand new information, please.
Okay. Well, meditation has been very much a part of my healing pathway. I told you I had burnout and various other problems in Bali. And I think meditation has actually helped me to disaggregate what is unhelpful about modern living, or my perception of what modern living must encompass, and what is not. So it's giving me a really strong focus on where to put my attention as a human being in terms of helping humanity and helping myself.
I mean, you're a big believer as well, Alex, in meditation.
Yeah.
So
and a lot of people think of meditation from a spiritual level, like religion. It's nothing about that. It's I would say it's more like, the way to explain it quickly to someone that I like to lean on is it's kind of like a psychedelic trip, but longer, drawn out. You lot more. You need to put a lot more time and effort into it, but you have that same kind of ego death, the ability to look at everything in your own life and the world from a more less egocentric perspective.
I mean, the lineage of instruction that I'm following is Kadampa Buddhism, and the very beautiful part about that is holding as one of the most virtuous objects for your life as you move through this life is to be responsible for one's own inner peace and contentment. And I really accept that, and I think that that's a very beautiful starting point and end point for life. I am responsible for that, so I will do what I can to do that for myself, and also as much as I can for others.
Yeah. But I don't think there's a better way to understand yourself than meditation. I don't have any of the religious aspect of it. Got into it using the Waking Up app by Sam Harris.
Oh, right.
And I recommend it to everyone.
Great.
So, but you're in an actual meditation community.
Correct. I actually do.
Very cool.
And in fact, this weekend just past, I was teaching a very beautiful meditation retreat for beginners. So you can see this beginner kind of theme with Sophie. Beginners meditation, helping people, cryptocurrencies. It's just something I have a passion for.
You're just bringing the things that have enriched your life to other people, right?
Correct. I like to think of it that way. Yeah. Thank you. You summarise that really well.
Well, no, it's obvious.
Oh, thank you.
I got an interesting question here now. So now we're talking about meditation, sector Buddhism, and cryptocurrency. How do you marry the two when cryptocurrency is actually a hyper-capitalist environment? It's all about making money, generating yields, whereas meditation is a bit separate from that. It's about disconnecting from that. How do you put them two together?
Well, my way to reconcile anything to do with wealth or anything to do with external conditions is whatever motivation I take into that particular that particular pathway or that particular activity is something that I try to find the most virtuous purpose for. Now, I'm not saying that there is something virtuous or non-virtuous about these markets, but if I am thinking my desire to help others benefit financially from my efforts to participate, and I need to also, create wealth for myself. I have to live. So these are very practical things. So
you have to be pragmatic.
That's right. Yeah. So, I mean, at one level, I think Buddhism does reconcile very nicely because it is very pragmatic. If one is choosing the householder pathway of living in the world and having a career, then one can choose whichever pathway is suitable to your capacities, and this is suitable to mine.
All right. So I want to move to the next topic, which is education.
Yes.
So I don't know how to approach this too much, but ultimately it's common. People often say that children today don't get enough financial education.
Or any,
really. Are we doing enough today to teach children about financial? I'm getting into it. Teach them about financial literacy. Should cryptocurrencies actually be introduced into an early age?
Good question.
What do you think, Sophie?
Yeah. Well, having raised a son, and he's been one of my coaches. Let's just say.
You test that. He's your guinea pig. You test all your.
Well, I had many clients before him, but I just said, look, I'm just going to have to get him involved, and he really sees the benefit. And he sees the benefit because many of his friends are actually trading.
Wow.
So this is amazing. He started in the markets about a year ago. And one of his friends has gone on actually to study economics, I think somewhere in England, and he was in their group of friends. Very strong in Bitcoin. So I said, well, how did he learn about that? And he said, I think his family, or, so he was getting exposure to this information outside of the formal education system. And so what's really great about it, he's homeschooled as well. It's a long story, but his teacher decided to teach him about compounding interest and math. So they did a whole kind of module around that. So he found that to be fascinating. So, I feel education, particularly from a younger age, would be so beneficial. And for those of us who are not, I still feel it could be very beneficial. So one of the things that I have in my heart and my mind as a vision to do is to create a highly gamified crypto education app that has a token attached to it. I would really like that.
So for children to jump on and learn more?
It could be for children, but I think it could also be for adults as well. I think adults are probably the ones that would want to purchase it. There's a lot of work to be done to just look at the more viable components of it. But I think that there definitely is a market for a singular kind of product where people can go to, because the source of information is vast, isn't it?
There isn't. There isn't a centralized platform. You're right.
No,
I'm thinking about
it's not.
That
could be something we tic-tac on, but look, really, I've just been there looking and trawling. I trawl through a lot of various
it's like you got Twitter, you got blogs, you got white papers.
We have a lot.
All over the place. And then you
Discord.
Discord and Telegram, right? And then you start to work it out.
Granular. Exactly. And I'm thinking more specifically at the... if you look at the adoption curve, probably at the front end, once people get comfortable with the ecosystem, then they can branch out and look wherever they want to. But I think to really help people to become aware of these markets and to enter into it and have their own opinions and access to information that they can use, I'd like to metricize everything if I could from an FA perspective. Exactly. We think of FUD. We think of, where does the source of this information actually come from? Are we looking at the blockchain metrics to really validate that these are accurate undertakings? That's why I wasn't quite sure about the adoption rates from AAA. I've got to go and have a look at that website and do a little more digging, but it looked very fun. It's got profiles of adoption for many countries around the world, so it's the first one I've seen dedicated to that.
I've never heard any stats around that. It's
AAA.io,
AAA.io, I remember that.
So on the topic of moving away from the generational wealth kind of financial stuff, a lot of people push crypto to be a way to bank the unbanked. So you've been in Indonesia, you lived in Ubud for a bit.
Yes.
Do you think that's a valid point? Like, does crypto actually help the unbanked in the world? Or is it just like a pipe dream?
I think it's the potential to.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, we've worked with some people in Indonesia. We've worked with some people in Indonesia, and we actually struggled to pay them.
You cross the border
without paying just gigantic fees.
It's crazy, yeah.
We'll have to talk offline about how to do that, because I know there are other ways to do it very easily. And
we ended up using a stable coin and paying them that way.
Fantastic.
That worked really well.
Fantastic.
I think there is potential here, like you said, and the solutions won't be just giving people cold wallets or something. There's more.
No.
I think in the Philippines there's a service called coins.ph.
Okay.
And it's a similar system. It's an exchange plus payment processor plus kind of a bank account in a single platform. And I look forward to see what happens in the future.
I do too. I mean, I have great hope, because I think that that's another point of interest for me in these markets. And I just wrote some statistics down here. So, let's look at them. Comparing the US, 28 million users, South America, 24 million. That's quite interesting. And then Africa, 32 million. That's the continent of Africa. So you can see that there is high adoption in using
where
cryptocurrencies.
That's where John got his
That's where I got my first Bitcoin.
Yes, it was.
It was in Ghana, in West Africa.
Fantastic.
They were far ahead of the game. I think in Kenya they had M-Pesa, which is sending phone credit as cash to each other through their dumb phones.
That's right.
So they were already far ahead.
Already far ahead.
Yeah,
that's used as a business case and a use case in many business schools. That's amazing.
So one of my this is kind of it's just a rant now, but there's a bit of a savior complex within the crypto communities where they try to help the Africans, give them banks, and
it's a pretty white people thing to do.
But they've already solved the problem, man. They got phone credit.
They don't trust their central organizations, so they figured it out because they didn't have a choice.
Yeah, and for a outside community to come in and to enforce crypto on, it's not the way to go. No. The technology can help, I feel, but it's not the most obvious route. It's probably not the way.
Well,
It's amazing. It's a real kind of validation, isn't it, of what is value and what can we use to transact in? Do we believe that our phone credits can be useful enough to convert into cash to pay for electricity bills or food, And people are very practical, aren't they?
Yeah.
Well, at the end of the day, you have to be able to pay for things and receive payment. So something will evolve out of that. And I think cryptocurrency is better than credits, phone credits. And I think when countries don't trust their central organizations because of corruption and things like that, then cryptocurrency really could play an amazing part there. And I think when you talk about a centralized cryptocurrency replacing replacing fiat.
Correct.
It's still operating as fiat, honestly, but you have the blockchain behind it. That could be actually a way to root out that corruption that people are afraid of. Because now you can see where the money flows. And that's important, right? And as we don't have that in our current system, not easily.
That's right.
I guess also that depends on whether you buy the reasoning for it as a way to root out corruption, or whether that is a more popularly palatable reason to introduce it, rather than maybe looking at some of the other questions behind government. I think when you give government levers of control, and those levers of control can be inflated and empowered and emboldened so rapidly, that's my concern sometimes. So I do see the positives to central currencies, offered by central banks, but I can also feel that it comes with a warning, with caution.
I was going to say, sorry, go on.
Oh, so just quickly, I personally think the risks, they're obviously there and should be taken into account. But I think for a lot of economies, being able to root out that bureaucratic level corruption that reduces trust in institutions will improve their economy tenfold. I think there's a lot of economies that are
it's inefficient, right?
Yeah, and trade is hard there. And investment is wary always, because you could be scammed or blocked by a government bureaucrat who didn't receive the right amount of bribe. And so once you root out that kind of corruption, you should improve the whole health of that economy.
I guess my thesis is, and I agree with you, I can see, with great positivity how that ideally should be the case. I also tend to believe that as a human being having the right of self-determination, that it's also very healthy to build in permissionless let's just be bold, competition to the state, because that is just something that was my right as a human being to participate in.
Well, you mentioned levers of control. That's an interesting one. So I guess things like interest rates and the rate of printing. I believe every single time a dollar moves from traditional finance into DeFi, the levers of control get weaker.
Yeah.
So they get weaker and weaker and weaker. So what happens when governments realize that the levers are getting eroded by DeFi?
I think it's a very difficult space for them to be in, because typically in the past, I think there's been a belief that that is a right of government to have as much control. Yeah. I think what's forgotten, and I think this is something very positive that comes from being in a very small country. We've had politicians state that we are here to serve you, the people, and the moment you actually take your eyes off that civil responsibility that you have to monitor, to to be the voice of modulation with government, that's your problem. You've allowed that to happen. So I take more that view of it. So I think that can be scary if a government has been given by the people more oversight.
Although I actually disagree with your premise with some caveats. So I don't think anything happening in DeFi is lessening the control of the fiat system and the governments and the central banks, because we still pay for everything in fiat. So if you get to the point where I can pay my rent and my groceries and things like that with cryptocurrency, and I can actually leave my wealth in cryptocurrency, then I think you're lessening their control. But right now, no, that's just not the case.
Would your perhaps point be on the basis of obfuscating tax or these sorts of things, where you're not really declaring if you are making gains in your DeFi
I think more just money policy, right? Like, so
Yeah,
you
that's
can't
right.
control inflation to.
So the government, raises interest rates, or the RBA does anyway, raises interest rates, lowers them.
or prints money to handle the COVID
Yeah, and
crisis.
the more and
these
more,
kind of things.
more and more people park their wealth in cryptocurrencies, they get affected less and less by this.
But not really, because right now you still have to take it out back into fiat, and then the prices will adjust.
Yeah, well, I'm
based-
talking
think that-
medium term. In the future, there'll be
That
a
was my
point.
caveats. Like
Yeah,
that's
of course.
yeah.
So there's going to be a tipping point. One day I can pay my mortgage in stable coins, and then you got a problem.
Stable coins it's just fiat though.
Well, kind of. Let's not get into that today.
But I think that there's an interesting point, because I do feel that this is the time in humanity where the proposition of having competition, permissionless competition to government currencies is valid. This is what's appearing now, and so therefore I think it is worthy of us as a society, as a humanity, investigating, well, how can this be of benefit, without necessarily being harmful to others, clearly, if there is some regulatory oversight required, what seems reasonable, and not to be perhaps too concerned about without regulation. This is a very dangerous ecosystem that has no rightful place in, innovative technology. That's where I'm generally erring on the side of.
All right. I think we're coming to the close. We have one final question for you.
Great.
It is, we ask every guest this question. It's a whimsical question, if you will.
Okay, cool.
I don't know if you're a big fan of UFC or wrestling, but the fighters all have their song. So the lights go down, smoke machine starts, they come out, their song starts, the song communicates to the audience what their fighting character is all about, or who they're all about. What is your intro song?
My intro
What is
song.
Sophie's intro song? Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
So I've signed you up to give another talk like you did at the Crypto Summit, and I've asked you, what song would you like to play as you
This
come
is
out
really
on stage?
cheesy. I don't know.
All
I'm going to get booed.
No. Most answers are really cheesy, so
This
it's
is
good.
so cheesy.
Cheesier the better, honestly.
I'm a fan of Rocky Stallone.
Hey.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, he's got nothing to do with that context. But I mean, I really like Eye of the Tiger, so I think that,
Eye of the Tiger.
yeah.
Perfect. Yeah.
I really like tigers too, so I have
okay.
a connection with these animals. They're very beautiful.
Ditto, they're my favorite animal.
Yeah, they
tigers.
really are.
Yeah.
I've
All
got a
right.
lot of respect
Excellent.
for them.
All right. Thank you so much, Sophie.
Thank you. Thank
that
you
was
for
an
your time.
absolute pleasure. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much.
You've made it to the end of another episode of Tech Society. Well, that was a great episode. I hope you enjoyed that as much as we enjoyed making it. Make sure you hit us up on Twitter @Tech Society, head over to the website, subscribe to the newsletter.
On this day in tech history, September 10, 1990, the first internet search engine, Archie, is launched. It was used to index FTP archives to make finding files easier. However, as the technology for the World Wide Web was not invented until later in the year, it was not actually the first web search engine